Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So I'm Professor Shueton by name. On behalf of the AfriScience Network admin, I want to our fifth webinar. I would like to introduce the speaker, Professor Mrs. Veronica Obatolu, the Executive Director, Institute of Agricultural Research and Training, Obafemi Awolowo University, More Plantation, Ibadan. She will be presenting on a topic titled Utilizing African Researchers to Reduce Malnutrition, Poverty, and Unemployment. Before I invite our distinguished professor to make our presentation, I'd like to invite Dr. Hafiz from University of Ilorin to read our presentation. Is Dr. Hafiz online?
Yes, I'm online. Thank you, Prof.
Okay, please go ahead and read the present. Dr. Hafiz is from Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, University of Ilorin. So you are welcome to read the presentation of Professor Veronica Obatolu. Thank you.
Citation.
Citation.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Professor Veronica Obatolu is a Nigerian. She's a professor of human nutrition who believes in eating to nourish the body and not feeding the body. She's an exceptionally proficient research scientist who specializes in human nutrition with over 30 years of experience in food and nutrition research. She consistently ensures convincing interpretation of evidence-based research committed to aiding people to eat well and lead healthy lifestyle through community-based nutrition intervention design program. Professor Obatolu obtained her first in 1987, MSc and PhD degrees in human nutrition from Department of Human Nutrition, Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, University of Ibadan, Nigeria. She also obtained a postdoctoral fellowship from Department of Food Nutrition, University of Maine, United States of America in 1998, where her expertise involved extrudability of crab byproduct to address major problem of lobster and crab waste processing industries in East Coast of United States of America. Over the past 25 years, Professor Obatolu has conducted series of research on value-added products from grains and legumes with emphasis on protein and their phytochemical ingredients. This has brought innovative and effective solutions to alleviating malnutrition and disease prevention, as well as detecting new product development strategies with nutrient requirement throughout human life cycle. Our first working experience as a food nutritionist in the university-based Institute of Agricultural Research and Training, IR&T, has enhanced our knowledge in dietary pattern analysis and food chain modeling to design healthy food products, looking at different points of food production chain modeling from raw materials to consumer satisfaction, food pattern and nutrition challenges. She also worked as a senior lecturer heading the nutrition group at the Institute of Health and Community Studies, Bournemouth University, UK. Her work has earned her several recognition and international honors, among which are US National Marine Fishery Services Postdoctoral Award and Phi Sigma Award, Department of Food Science and Nutrition, University of Maine, USA. Professor Veronica Obatolu is a member of Multinational Research Hub on Food Security within the UN Habitat Partnership University Initiative and a 2011 mentor of African women in agricultural research and development. Professor Veronica Obatolu is a member of International Nutritional Society, Nutrition Society of Nigeria, the Nutrition Society UK, and Nigeria Soybean Association. Professor Veronica Obatolu has over 60 publications in several reputable international peer-reviewed learned journals, such as Annals of Nutrition and Metabolism, the International Journal of Applied and Basic Nutrition, Food Chemistry, European Food Research and Technology, Nigerian Journal of Nutrition Science, Journal of Food Processing and Preservation, Journal of Food Processing and Agriculture, to mention a few. Professor Veronica Obatolu is the first female executive director and chief executive officer of the Institute of Agricultural Research and Training, Ibadan, Obafemi Awolowo University, since over 50 years of its existence. Since assuming the exalted position of the CEO of the Institute, she has greatly improved on the services of the Institute through her Midas touch, and this has enhanced the livelihood of farmers and rural dwellers in southwestern zone of the country. This I can attest to from the villages around Ido and some other part of Southwest. In recognition of our contribution to the agricultural development and empowerment of farmers, Farmers Association of Farmers, especially in Southwest Nigeria, the Oyo State Agricultural Development Farmers Association recognized our efforts and honored her with a special award. Professor Obatolu has also been recognized as one of the Nigeria's most outstanding women in leadership. Precisely on Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023, Professor Veronica Obatolu was conferred with a Transparency Africa honor and also awarded a corruption-free certificate by Transparency Africa organization, a feat described by many as well-deserved. Permit me to welcome Professor Veronica Obatolu for our presentation. We are so honored to have you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hafiz, for presenting the citation of our distinguished speaker. So, Professor Veronica Obatolu, you are welcome, ma'am, to present your paper. Thank you.
Thank you. I will try to share my screen with you now. So please permit me to share my screen with you. So what am I to share? Hello, the host has disabled my screen for me to share with you. Hello? Hello?
Hi.
Hello? Yeah, can the screen enable me to share my screen with you?
Yeah, please go ahead, Ma. You have been enabled.
I tried to, but it's okay. Okay, thanks. I guess everyone can see my screen now.
Yes, we can see.
Good evening, everyone.
I can see.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. We can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our discussion on utilizing African research to reduce malnutrition, poverty, and unemployment in Africa in general. First, I'm going to ask something that is not really very strange to all of us. Did you know that African populations has been at an astonished rate over the last few decades, with no indications of slowing down? With the slide we're seeing on the screen, the population of Africa has been increasing annually in recent years. And this rate is believed that it will continue with a rate of 2050. In 2020, before 2020, we have a population of Africa being around 811 million. And by 2020, it has rose up to about 1.3 million. And this is billion. This is expected to rise up to 2.4 by the year 2050. This is very, very it calls for an alarm and for immediate attention by different stakeholders. Well, the major reason for this is that Africans have been found to have high fertility rates. And if this high fertility rate is not controlled, the policymakers need to do something in which to address it. Because population growth has its own challenges and has its own opportunities, which various stakeholders should consider in the development of policy making of any nation. Now, if we continue, there will be continuous growth in African population with its attendant challenges. And these challenges include conflict in demand for land, for food production and housing infrastructure. Most of us would have been experiencing that now, that there's competition between where we have to do our food production, housing. We have a lot of farmland being diverted into estates, housing, and that is creating a lot of strain for the development of our agriculture within Africa. There's also strains on infrastructure that negatively impacts the quality of life. It also impacts economic growth, environmental degradation, increase in demand for resources. When there's increase in population, there will be increase in demand for resources. As we are now witnessing, especially, I want to take Nigeria as an example. Because of the population increase, we have a lot of high unemployment rates, especially among the teeming younger populations. First, the older one, like myself, we're still in service, we still make ourselves useful, and then the younger ones cannot come in without the older one moving out of the system. But how do you want to drive the older one out of the system when they are still productive? When they can still contribute to the development of any nation. So we have high rates of unemployment among teeming younger populations. So what are the solutions? We need to find solutions for this growing population, for the challenges that we will experience within the growing population of Africa. One of the solutions, some of the solutions that I've been able to go through is we should try to invest in education and healthcare. As population is growing, definitely there's need to invest in education and healthcare. It is important that we should embrace growth and work towards finding a solution to these challenges by way of investing in education and healthcare, by way of promoting sustainable development, by way of harnessing the potential of our Africa younger population, so that the younger population will not just depend on the government work, but how can we equip them so that they will be their own worker themselves? They will be their own employers and be able to employ others. How can we achieve all this? What we need is to invest in cutting-edge research activities so that we can provide more pragmatic approaches to tackle some of this issue. So it is based on this reason, this paper attempts to highlight ways by which African researchers has been or can be utilized to reduce unemployment, poverty, and malnutrition. Because when all these three things are out of the way, it is definitely that the population, the growing population, will be an advantage to Africans rather than being a challenge. So the outlines for this presentation will be to understand some of the terms, and we have 3 terms. The terms are unemployment, poverty, and malnutrition. Then we will go further to discuss the barriers to conducting research in Africa, because there are a lot of barriers that Africans are facing. Being an African itself is a barrier to research, talk less of being able to have enough infrastructures. Then we also try to highlight some of African researchers' efforts and some specific efforts to reduce unemployment, poverty, and malnutrition. Then we go ahead in concluding recommendation, and if we have any question after that. So we go to understanding of terms. We unemployment rates in Africa have been on the rise, with millions of individuals, as I've said before, struggling to find work and support themselves and their families. Many African countries struggle with low levels of industrialization and high levels of dependence on natural resources, which leads to volatile and unstable job markets. So we depend so much on natural resources. If you see our farmers on the farm, they depend mainly on when the rainy season. Not many of them will imbibe using of irrigation. Majority cannot afford to modernize their method by which they practice their agriculture. So we have this unstable market. At this season, we have one particular type of crop. At the other season, we have the particular type of crop. So unemployment, according to the dictionary, is a state of being without a job or work. And it is a complex issue in Africa with a variety of causes. And these causes include economic, political, and social factors. These are the causes that influence unemployment in Nigeria. Economic factor is that most people, the example I gave, cannot modernize their farming, their agricultural system, and by this, there's the need, by this, that we have little people to employ. Most of we Nigerians mainly, especially in Africa, let's just say Africa as a whole, we're more than importers, so importers than exporters. And most of our country are not industrialized. So if we are not industrialized, this will affect the economic situation of the country. With unemployment also, the political issue also comes in. And the political issue is a way in which we don't have a stable political situation in Africa. Most often we see a lot of unstable political situation in Africa's situation. And this definitely will affect unemployment within Africa. So the rate of unemployment in Africa is rising. Millions of individuals are struggling to find work and support themselves. So an economic indicator that reflects the health of an economy and the labor market is one of the indicators. An economy, you will see it that the health of the populace will show whether a nation has a good economy or not. The health of that nation will indicate. and the labor market also. Who are the type of people that are being trained to enter into our labor markets? So these are the things that determine the unemployment. We have a lot of graduates now that are unemployed, but reason is, what are they? What did they study in the university? Majority are studying maybe political science. Some, well, are studying administration, that is public admin. This will not really contribute to the economic growth of a nation. Rather, we have majority there, and there's a limit to which any organization can employ within all this circle. Now, what are the factors that influence unemployment? I'm happy majority of us that are here were Nigerians. The factors that influence into slow economic growth. As the population is growing, Nigerian economy is not growing. Then if insufficient investments in productive sectors. Now we can calculate how many industry really do we have in Nigeria? How many? Most of our people, they don't invest. Rather, they will rather go out to import and also to sell. Most of us, we do sell, buy and sell, and this is affecting the unemployment within the country. Then rapid growth of population also is not an excuse. Lack of infrastructures and political instability, which I already explained earlier. Now, what is poverty? We know employment is being without a job and without a job or a work. So now what is poverty? Poverty is a state in which this thing is not good. Sorry, I'm having problem with my screen. It's not moving. Okay. So maybe poverty. Let me stop. So Sorry, I have an issue with my network. I have to change network. Now, the World Bank sets the international poverty line as $1.9 per day, and many factors affect the ability to earn this $1.9 per day. If we look at the whole of Africa as a whole, about 90 million, many Africans fell into extreme poverty because of their inability to fall within this $1.9 per day. And this was extravagated by the COVID-19 pandemic. That's one that did not help the issue even then. So the COVID-19 outbreak in the COVID-19 outbreak in 2020 really made the condition of a lot of people that are in the poverty line to increase. And many factors affect this poverty line, just as the unemployment, social, economic, and political factors also affect poverty. And poverty is multidimensional. Poverty means access to health, access to nutrition, access to standard of living, that is accessibility to safe water, sanitation, housing, electricity, cooking, and productive assets. Now, with all my needs planned today, I want us to see these things listed under poverty. That is there any one of us that is 100% free of poverty? Let's talk about the health, the nutrition. You know, it's not only having the ability to eat, not only having food to eat, that talks about nutrition. Now, access to education. Is it every one of us in Africa that have access to education and our standard of living? If we talk that we have education, do we all have access to safe water, sanitation, housing, electricity? Consider how many times you will be presenting, or maybe you will be at home working on your desk and the power or electricity will be switched off. So these are things that determine poverty. How many percentage of African population can say categorically that they are not within the poverty line? Now, malnutrition. Malnutrition is an outcome of consistent, inadequate consumption, absorption of the right quantities and kinds of food and essential nutrients. And this is recorded to accept that is malnutrition, especially the undernutrition, affects every 3 persons in sub-Saharan Africa. Every 3 people, where people, 1 out of every 3. So now we have how many people on the list now? It means we will have some people that are malnourished. So 1 out of every 3 people in sub-Saharan Africa are malnourished. The UNICEF reported that 69% death among children under 5 in Nigeria is due to malnutrition. And also the IPC, that is Infection Prevention and Control Units, reported that nearly 6 million children aged 0 to 59 months in 2 regions in Nigeria are suffering from acute malnutrition. If we have 6 million children suffering from acute malnutrition, when these children grow into adulthood, what do you expect? What miracle do you expect? What do we expect them to contribute to the nation? This should be of global concern with enormous social and economic implications, and is the leading cause of illness worldwide. It has impacts on physical and mental growth. It has impacts on immunity and the general health. This also limits the potential of an individual to achieve its full potential. Now, this is the Times. This is the report of the Premium Times. It says Nigeria loses 15% of our GDP annually to malnutrition. If we lose 15% of our GDP to malnutrition, how can the nation grow? And it says out of 35 million of on the malnourished children, 14 million are stunted, 3 millions are wasting, and 24 millions are anemic. These are the things that affect productivity within a nation. And this is what is giving Africa to be, making Africa to be backward when we compare it to other continents within other continents within the surface of the earth. And it says 14.5 million people suffer from acute food insecurity, and 25 million people are hungry in Nigeria. Now, we have unemployment, poverty, and malnutrition. There is a vicious cycle that exists through which unemployment, poverty, malnutrition reinforce one another. We cannot, both these three major things reinforce one another. One leads to the other, and the other leads to the other. And it's just a vicious circle round. You have the unemployment. The major indicator of unemployment is poverty. The major indicator of poverty is unemployment. And unemployment is the major cause of poverty. When one doesn't have enough job to feed the family, then it leads to the person become poor. And then when one is poor and doesn't have access to enough type of food that is supposed to take, and that person doesn't have enough access to feed the family, then we have malnutrition setting in. And when we have malnutrition, the person, especially, I'm just giving the illustration of the pregnant woman, because a malnourished pregnant woman cannot give birth to someone that is healthy. This leads to low birth weight, and then when the child is born, the child is physically and mentally stunted, and then it goes back. The child grows into stunted adults, and when that stunted adult goes, it goes back to unemployment, because the nation now have low human capital. The child cannot study in order to achieve the full potential, and the child cannot contribute. The
Network issue. Okay, you can consider the network issue.
Sorry, I can't hear anything again. No.
I guess the network is bad there.
I can't hear anything as well. I don't know, maybe the network issue. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry. Sorry for any inconvenience.
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay, so sorry about that. So we're on world population as affected by poverty and undernutrition. Majority of the world poor, that is 50%, are located in sub-African and South Asian countries, which include India, Nigeria, Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, and Bangladesh. And of all these countries, Nigeria is one of those that are leading. And this is due to countries because of incessant conflicts, poor governance, natural disasters that are affected. So before we now go to the main, that research in Africa. What has been our contribution so far in Africa? That research have assisted in helping malnutrition and assisting unemployment, or what can they do? What really can research do in Africa, and so that it will be able to control the unemployment, the poverty, and also malnutrition. Africa is a continent rich in resources, culture, and diversity. And with this, we can really make use of this diversity within Africa for us to address what is really, researchers can make use of this to address the unemployment, poverty, and malnutrition issue. Research in Nigeria, in Africa faces some of the toughest challenges worldwide. As I said, being an African alone is a challenge to research, because by the time you sit, work 100 hours in your laboratory or do your research, and by the time it's out and you now try to sell it to the people, the populace, you see the African man, the older man, maybe in the village saying, oh, before you were born, I used to do this. So being an African is a challenge in itself. And so it makes it worse to tackle and to go through robust and efficient research, because there's insufficient and inadequate research is a major impediment to growth, development, and advancement in various sectors in Africa. Now, African researchers. Yes, African researchers have always tried to play a crucial role in solving most challenges posed by several factors. Research outcomes offers possibilities for improvement in the quality of life through a better understanding of modern hygiene, of nutrition, environmental protection, governance system, and also to provide the blueprint for increased productivity in virtually all production and social sector. It's the African researchers, though it is very challenging to have a good research in Africa, but African researchers are trying all they could in order to address the issues and to make Africa a better living place for everyone. Now we have the barriers. What are the barriers that affect African researchers in conducting their research? Well, we have research in Africa is complex and dynamic, and it has a lot of significant gaps, which these gaps I would consider as a barrier to every African undergoing research. And that is the research capacity. Do we have enough capacity to undergo the complexity of research within Africa? Especially in Africa, how can we do this? The fund is not even helping Martin. We have infrastructure, funding and infrastructure across the continent is very low. And this has become very difficult for majority of us to do thorough, valid, and reliable research. Now, we also have mentor scarcity. Many mentors, people that should mentor people within Africa, you see majority going for greener pastures, going to other countries in order to contribute there, while we leave our younger ones within Africa to look for mentors. Lack of writing skills is also a barrier to researchers in Africa. Lack of motivation. Even when you develop something, when you bring out a patent, you are not being motivated. The patent is just there on the table. You don't have the industrialists to take it up. You don't have the government to support you. The government would rather give billions of dollars or billions of naira to people who can play football and score goals when they are playing, rather to spend half of that money on research. So there's low demand for research by our policy makers. If we look all these things, that addressing the barriers to conducting research, especially, is necessary in addressing the SDG, the SDGs goals. It is important, especially if we consider without research, Africa will not be able to address the SDG goal 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Is a step when we try to, it's because addressing these goals is a step towards reducing unemployment, malnutrition, and also unemployment, poverty, and malnutrition within Africa. So it is necessary to address the barriers that the researchers are facing. So African researchers' efforts. Despite the fact that Africa has these efforts, such limited funding that has been mentioned, we still try. I will give kudos to African researchers because they put a lot of efforts with the little resources, with the little infrastructure to see that something comes out that will be useful to build the nations. Africa, and they have made a lot of numerous and remarkable achievements in various fields. Africa has a rich history of intellectual and scientific exploration. It is history, even our forefathers that are not termed to be researchers. When they go to farm, put two leaves together, they bring out something out of it. So it is in us, it is in every individual that is born in African continent that we have an history of intellectual and scientific exploration. Its research institute center, our research institutes and centers plays a crucial role in advancing knowledge and driving development across the continent, despite the fact that most of these African research institutions are deprived of enough funds. Ending malnutrition and poverty and unemployment in the continent, many African researchers often put their efforts in ending this in the continent. We struggled and we're doing cut-edge research and collaborate with international partners. We see most of our researchers writing proposals, collaborating in order for us to fight and end malnutrition, poverty, and unemployment. So we tackle this, the institutions within Africa and individual tackles most of these present challenges today, that is agriculture and nutrition, health and Medicare, environment and agriculture, education and economy. That is what our researchers are doing in this area in order, because these are the major area challenges that we have that is making unemployment, poverty, and malnutrition to prevail in the continent. So what has researchers done in this area? And one of these is, because protein and micronutrient malnutrition, that is agriculture and nutrition now, because protein and micronutrient malnutrition is a continuing and serious public health problem in many African countries, various interventions to alleviate these problems have been implemented. It has been done and it has been implemented by most of African scientists. Through genetic engineering, that is biofortification of crops for reducing malnutrition. We see that Goto et al. In 1999 did genetic engineering, whereby it transferred the iron storage of protein ferritin gene of soybean into rice. That is a method in order, that is biofortification of rice, transferring one that is excess in one of the products to the other one. There's also biofortification through breeding and biotechnological approach. And one of it is, of recent, we know, improving the pro-vitamin A content of cassava. We now have through breeding we now have some of our staples that are now rich in provitamin, and most of them rich in micronutrients. We now have breeding, improving nutrients or nutritional quality of rice, wheat, maize, beans, cassava, and millets through breeding. Now, the climate change also, the focus of crop improvements for enhancing vitamin A, also for climate and sustainable agricultural research. Researchers have also focused on this, and they are also doing whatever they could in order, African scientists are doing all they could in order to control the current climate change in which we have, by producing crops that are less resistant to pests and diseases, and producing crops that are resilient to climate change and dependent on and less dependent on farmers' inputs. If our farmers cannot have a lot of input, researchers are doing what are the crops that can stand all these stresses. So these are some of the These are some of the African-related research on climate. When I look, combining the data, African-based research organizations working on climate-related issues, and as of November 1, 2021, the database of Kennedys shows that at least 117 African-based organizations in the continent are working on issues that are related to climate change for sustainable agriculture, renewable energy, sustainable urban development, and extractive industry, with some that overlaps one another. These are all what's agricultural, about 64 working on agricultural and forestry, 52 on energy, 48 on others, and 39 on extractive energy and urban development industry. These are ways in which African scientists, African researchers have put a lot in combating or to see how they can solve the problem to use agriculture and nutrition in order to eradicate unemployment, nutrition, or malnutrition, and poverty. Now, agriculture also, this has to do, this are evidence-based nutrition. It's so important to make sure recommendations are true. When we do research, we ensure that without evidence, we cannot take it out. So African researchers are doing all what they could to make the recommendation based on evidence-based. And one of it is to know how much it is the job of the researcher, African researchers, that study what nutrients are in each of our staple foods. And it is with this they can make recommendation on dietary pattern or what amounts could be taken. Research and development have a long history of prioritizing food and potential nutritional values for agricultural investments. And also majority of scientists, also researchers, have worked on ways of adding value along the value chain, right from the time of soil until when it gets to the table. We have a lot of researchers working. What are they doing? It is in an attempt to eradicate hunger and to reduce poverty within the continent. Now, aid to medicine. Researchers also researchers seek to identify the drivers of malnutrition and predict increase in nutritional risk. Because it is the earth, when the earth is not being taken care of, that leads to medicine. So in the area of healthcare and medicine, the researchers, African researchers, have done a lot to incorporate treatments into existing community-based health services. So researchers have done this, and we will see that it is the work of African researchers that led to the importance of exclusive breastfeeding practices. And they were able to say that adequate nutrition during the first 1,000 days window of a lifetime has a major benefit for the individual, for the benefit, and for the nation. Because a child that is exclusively breastfed for this period is sure or is certain that the child will have a well-nourished brain, that when the child grows up to adulthood, the child will be healthy and will be able to contribute to the, will be able to study, there will be development in the motor skill, we have stronger immune system, and will be able to fight off most of the diseases or some of the mental inability that will be caused by that. So we have a lot of researchers that have worked in this area, how they relate the health to medicine, and how medicine can be related to an individual who will be medicine-free, be healthy, and contribute to health. We have advance of research in formulation of different type of foods that can combat child malnutrition. Now, environment and agriculture. Increasing heat intensity and variation in the pattern of rainfall have direct impact on agricultural productivity and an indirect impact due to the availability of water wired for irrigation. Our estimates from the IPC show that crop yields have reduced from 10 to 25%. And this reduction can be worsened due to climate change. If researchers do not work very well and look for other alternatives to address the current climate change, by 2050, this will affect the productivity of the nation. Now, agriculture, because agriculture also reacts to shock from emission and energy. And so the researchers are the one that we now harness all these things together. They have been doing it and they are still doing it. Africa knows their own environment and they are working in order to improve their environment to fight against the climate change for sustainable agricultural applications. Now, education and economic growth. The education has an effect on economic growth. Education is a basic right. Education is a basic right, basic human right for all. And when tailored to the unique needs of any community, can be used as a leveler against some of the system barriers that can keep certain groups of people further behind. 75%, these are works of, what I'm presenting now are works of researchers, African researchers, in order to make African continent a good place. 75%, in 2021, Moonish reported that 75% of the growth in gross domestic products around the world between 1960 and 2000 was linked with the increase of people studying mathematics and science. That is, it was linked with the increase of mathematics and science skill among the population. So with education, with these skills, the economic growth, that is the GDP, was able to grow. And it is because of this, they have knowledge, researchers have knowledge. With this study, they're able to have knowledge of the capita of what they have. The researchers in the World Bank also, in examining 15 countries in sub-African, found that educated women tend to have fewer children and have them later in lifetime. So because they tend to have healthier children because they are educated and they imbibe what they have studied, the importance of their children. And also said that education has a link that quality education is a level to develop or industrialization.
From this weekend, see from Australia. Hello.
Can't hear anything again.
Gracias, chicos.
To me aka ce na Najeriya ne sai a hankali.
Kuma jan muku da tako ne sai ya tsaya ku. Tuntuni ne?
Tun around 6:03.
Ya tsaya.
Kamar an ɗauke wuta ne. Tana can tana battling. Wancan technical stuff ɗin nan zai sha zagi a wurin professor nan.
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute. Sorry, you are not hearing me. Well, this I'm sure you are sharing the screen. Yeah.
Abin da ta ce kenan.
Yeah, now these are some of the value addition.
Kin ga abin da wani ce, the technical challenge with this presentation is too much.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, sorry. Well, it's network. I know, don't be the technical challenge will be much because where I am. So sorry for that. And how can I do that? Okay, yeah. So the value addition now is I was talking before of some of using IRT as a contact to all other scientists or researchers all over the world, African scientists. That of recent, we just developed 3 varieties that are 4-armyworm resistant in order to increase productivity, in order to reduce poverty and malnutrition. We also have the value-added food products from researchers in an effort to reduce poverty. And these are some of the efforts. Scientists have also conducted research to identify dietary patterns, evaluating the evaluation of interventions, exploring local food sources, and understanding the social and cultural factors influencing nutrition. We know that in Africa, we have most of our staples are carbohydrates, but scientists are working in way, how can they improve this, our staples, and how can they do a way to find a way in order to disabuse taboos, some of the taboos on some of the foods that we consume. African researchers have been actively involved in exploring all these strategies and working strategies in ecosystems. Now, I will go to conclusion because I guess the internet is not being friendly. The efforts of African researchers has led to the transformation of the agri-food system by reducing vulnerability to unemployment, poverty, and malnutrition. Now we have breeds, they have developed resilient crop varieties and livestock breeds. Scientists have developed cutting-edge technologies for ideal processing conditions and utilizations of food and industrial crops. Scientists also have achievements in demonstrating the brilliance and creativity of African researchers and their potentials to contribute greatly to economic development and advancement of the country. The work of the scientists, when it is being made use by the policy makers, it's really advanced the economic development of the continent. We see places like Egypt, where the research, the output of the research is being used, that the economy, they are also within the African continent and they have a good economy when we compare to other African countries. Now, research outcomes are used to reshape and improve policy coherence, particularly for food security and nutrition, and also for other policymakers that they will do. Now, my recommendation in concluding this is that it is vital to support African researchers through the governments, the people ruling African continent research, and to build capacity among research scientists and invest on infrastructure and equipment to enhance cutting-edge research innovations among African researchers and other continents researchers. By this, we will be able to share ideas and bring continents in going further and becoming like other developed continents. Then investing in African research institutions and centers, we unlock the full potential. Most research institutions is only by name. Our government really investing in them. If the government can invest in them, definitely the potentials of this institution will assist the continent in growing. Then there should be investment in quality education, because without quality education, there cannot be researchers. A long time, because there cannot be the researchers that will work and be able to set the continent free out of unemployment, poverty, and malnutrition. So I want to appreciate everyone with this recommendation. I will appreciate everyone and thank you for your attention. And I'm sorry for the inconveniences, the breaking up and down of the internet. I have about 3 networks here, but unfortunately none is performing properly. It was one of my staff here that gave me his Airtel connection. So thank you all for your time and attention. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Obatolu, for the great presentation. Despite the itches here and there, we still appreciate the presentation. Thank you very much, Prof. We don't know if we can entertain 1 or 2 questions from our participants, please. Do we have anybody having 1 or 2 questions to ask Prof or comments? If you have one, kindly unmute yourself and speak, please. Anybody? Okay, Prof, really appreciate your presentation, your time and efforts you have invested into this lecture. It is an eye-opener and we want to appreciate you very well. As we conclude this insightful webinar by Professor Mrs. Veronica Obatolu, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to her for sharing her expertise and knowledge on utilizing Africa researchers to reduce malnutrition, poverty, and unemployment. We have gained valuable insights that will undoubtedly contribute to our collective efforts in addressing these critical challenges in Africa. We also want to express our appreciation to all the participants who have joined us despite the itches. We just pray that you bear with us. This condition is unavoidable. We can't avoid it due to the prevailing situation. Your active engagement and thoughtful contributions is enriching our network, and we appreciate that. Let us take the lessons learned today and apply them in our respective fields of research and practice to make a meaningful impact on our continent. Together as members of the AfriScience network, we can drive positive change and work towards a brighter future for Africa. Once again, thank you very much, Professor Obatolu, for your time and expertise. We look forward to more collaborative endeavors in the future. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you all for attending.
Thanks everyone also for listening. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. We'll end the meeting now. Thank you very much.